check. But there was only maybe, I think 500 acres, but it's in pretty steep terrain. They worked on it for a couple weeks. Well, it looks like we got a bunch of people here. So
Yeah, Baka's going to hang out on my session for a bit just to make sure if anybody signed on over there.
okay. Yeah, because we moved the meeting over to my account because we're just running into conflicts. So also in the calendar invite is the link to the document. So if you go in and edit the meeting invite, you'll see the link there. So go ahead and sign in if you can. So some of the things that we talked about last week were to get some working groups going. So the two that looked like were our first starting ones was around the architecture of Ortelius and a marketplace for microservices, how we can structure that. So we need to get a time slot for that, and then also a marketing and outreach working group as well. So those were kind of the two ones. What's the easiest way for us to get a time slot figured out? Do we just want to decide that now, or do we want to just send out an email and go from there?
I think we should decide now. But we can send out a, what is that tool that you can send out for voting on time slots?
I mean, most of these meetings are just 2 or 3 people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't send out a survey for that. If everybody's here, we can figure it out, I guess, right?
Yeah,
I
think so.
See if, because we have a pretty long list of people. And
I mean, I'm okay if we want to send out the survey if that's just the more democratic way to do it.
Yeah, let's send out the survey because I know there's we're short people today with
Day after the holiday.
Yeah. So let's send out a couple surveys. Let's send out the 2 surveys for that. And I think we'll be better off just to be picking up anybody that couldn't make it today. So we'll get those out this week. We won't leave them open long. You know, we don't need to leave them open for like a week or anything like that. We'll just do a couple days. You know, maybe the end of the week to figure out the time slots. Then we can get going on some of the meetings next week, which would be great. And then I talked to Marky over the weekend and last week, and he couldn't make it today. So one of the things that he was put on his to-do list was some GitHub restructuring. One of the things I did work out with him was in GitHub you have issues, and then we were having problems. I was having problems with getting people to be assigned to the issue. What he is working on is at the Ortelius level, we can create teams, and it doesn't look like he's gotten through to create the teams. But we're going to go through, create teams, and add people to the teams, and then we'll be able to assign issues to people, which will make the project management a lot easier. You know, when somebody says they want to work on something, they'll be able to go ahead and either assign themselves or, you know, whoever is managing that repo can assign the person at that level. So that's going to help a lot. We're going to get that going here he's out sick actually, so hopefully when he gets back on his feet, he'll be able to get that wrapped up. If not, we'll take a stab at it, creating those teams and getting people into the groups. What we'll do is we'll base it off of the README, where people have decided which projects they want to work on. We'll use that as the group membership for now to figure out, like, give us a jump start. Also, I talked to him about the contributor guide that the issue that was open around that. He had some ideas on that, was going to take a stab. He wanted to put together a Google Doc for each high-level working group, and the contributor guide was part of that. So that is moving slowly as part of that. And one thing I need to do is I forgot is to record this.
I am.
Okay, good. So we'll get the recording pushed up to YouTube as part of that, and getting the links in the contributor guide. So basically people know, what each repository is working with, just some basic stuff that he had some ideas on. Also, we'll be looking for getting some Twitter stuff out there on the social media side, and looking for, right now, blogging on Medium about Ortelius. We're not going to start off with our own blog site. We'll just go ahead and use Medium for now. Also, Marky was going to put together a quick session on, he had it in his Discord channel, where he was working on a way to, I didn't see it there, basically like a getting started guide with Git and GitHub, and he was going to record that, basically do a video type of working session on how to get working. I think he was going to make it interactive as part of that. So the set up a scenario of, I have a pull request, what are the steps you need to go through to squash a merge, and what does a good comment look like? Those type of things was the session that he was going to be putting together. So keep a heads up on that, about if you want to get it to go through that. It's a good thing because everybody does things a little bit differently around GitHub. Marky was one of the release coordinators for Kubernetes, so he has a lot of background with dealing with merging and PRs and along those lines. On that same note, on the Ortelius Discord channel, just make sure that you're out there and you can pick up the announcements that we'll see out on one of the announcement channel as part of that. Forgot to finish my thought there. I'm going to come back to growing the team here in a second. So there's the link to the CDF checklist. And one of the things that we need to see is if somebody could take a look at, I don't know if we need to create an issue for this or a PR to figure out where we're at and what needs to be done. Kind of, Dan gave us the checklist, and we just need to go through and see, we've completed half of it and we have this other stuff to do, or we're 80% of the way through as part of that list. So if anybody wants to volunteer for taking a look at that, that would be great. And a lot of it is just the organizational pieces, the contributor guide coming into play, you know, the license, you know, that we have licensing in place, those types of things. So it's not anything like really around how the code is structured, but more around the organization of how the open source project's being handled. On the PR side, I'm going to have some downstream maintenance fixes going in this week from Deploy Hub. We found a couple bugs that were pushing up from the downstream back into the upstream. Also, we have the enhanced reporting that we talked about last week. I did not get a chance to do a sample yet, but I did work with a couple people on getting their development environment up and going as part of that process. So most of this coding is going to be in Java and JavaScript. The one thing that that I'm considering, and this is going to come back to the architecture meeting, is if we want to start doing these as microservices themselves, these reports, because they're pretty isolated, and they may be a good place for us to start with instead of tacking on to the monolith that we have, actually breaking out these reports into microservices at that level. So I think we'll take a look at how that schedule comes about, and hopefully by next week we'll have a architecture meeting that we can talk about that. Look, it's still.
And Steve,
Yep.
in that architecture meeting, would that be the place to start bringing up integrations to things like Spinnaker?
Yes.
Possibly Argo.
Yep. So in this we have did I spell that right now?
Close enough. I think there's two N's for some reason.
Yeah, for some reason it didn't look right. Yeah. And then we still need some creative genius for our logo, to come up with a new logo. And then please go to the main README and fork the main repo and add yourself as a contributor to the section that you're interested in. So this is the README off of the main project. Just pick which section or subcommittee you're interested in, and go ahead and fork and add yourself to that as part of that process.
That'll also get you started with making sure you can check things in.
Yeah, it's the basic.
Yeah.
It'll get through the basics of checking in and those types of things, and understanding of basic PR. Nobody's going to scream at you if you do a PR wrong or anything like that. This is a friendly environment. You know, everybody's learning here as part of this process. And like I said, even it's going to be interesting. I'm looking very forward to Marky's how to get working correctly, because you know how I've been using it and how it's being used in a larger open source team is going to be interesting to understand. So just jumping back to ideas for growing the team, just want to open it up for that and anything else that we need to cover.
I think it'd be helpful to see what work has been done. I know that there's some on the team that are starting to do coding updates. Would you mind just covering those folks who have started doing some work in that area?
Yep. So some of the people have started with the main repository. I worked with a couple people to go ahead and check out the main repository. And from there, we set up Eclipse to deal with the Java code, which is in the DM admin web. So this is where the Eclipse project lives. So we're able to actually get that all up and running. One of the things that did come about that was because Ortelius uses a Postgres database, you can install Postgres locally, but it was decided on those calls that we're going to just do a hosted Postgres so we could have shared test data over on Azure. And there's an issue open on that to go ahead and work with Azure. So if anybody's interested in setting up Postgres on Azure, just grab the ticket. You can take it away from me. I'm happy to have less work. But the idea was to get some shared data that people can, for their development and local testing, that they can point to a shared database at that level. So that was the main thing we focused on, was getting those pieces up and going. Other people have been going in and, like I said, learning the basics, getting some of the documentation updated. So if you're looking for easy issues to work with, go look at the docs repository, and we'll have a couple issues out here that we need to look at. And this is where right now it's kind of hard because we don't have anybody, we have no assignees, but that will get fixed as part of that level. So there's a couple things over in documentation, and there's always updates that we need to, like I said, the main readmes about the contributor guide. So this main readme keeps on getting expanded as part of this process. And like I said, Marky's idea is to break these down into individual Google Docs as well, so we can have a little more meat around them than just a couple sentences. So in this, we'll have a marketplace and domains Google Doc that we'll associate to.
And in terms of those working groups, Steve, are we going to start trying to get meetings for each of those working groups? Is that what the goal is, to send out the a calendar?
Just the first two. So the architecture and marketplace, that's one group.
Okay.
And then outreach and marketing
Okay.
is the other group. So we'll just have those two as the starting point. And then if we need to get into like a developer specific
I think
working group,
yeah, I think you
would be the
probably
next
should.
one.
In fact, I think that instead of doing outreach and marketing, we probably should do a developer group. I would say that's probably takes precedent.
Okay. Well, I just know there's some people that were, the outreach and marketing was around setting up things like the YouTube account, getting the, Medium, a blog post. That's what this was
Okay.
initially slated for. Oh, and on the GitHub restructuring, I just had one. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. It was something with GitHub. I can't remember. Any comments, questions, any ideas that we can put together for growing the team?
I mean, the thing that I've generally seen folks do for this sort of thing is have some sort of talk that explains what the value proposition is, and then you need folks to volunteer to go give that talk at, virtual conferences or virtual user groups or that sort of thing. And so, I don't know who would be the best person to write the slides for that or whatever form you want that to take.
Yeah, we're starting down that road, and in fact, Marky and I are on a keynote at DevOps World talking about open source, and we talk about the Ortelius project. So I can take that on as a effort.
I don't really feel competent to contribute to that level of this thing at all, but like once we had a coherent presentation, I'm happy to present it at a few places.
Cool. Okay. I can work on that.
Yeah, hi, this is Kunal. I think value proposition is important, and beyond that, just understanding like at the different levels, like an understanding at the 30,000 feet level, and then I think understanding from a nuts and bolts level is necessary, especially for like technical people like myself, who I won't even touch a project unless I understand from the top all the way to the bottom, because then I can kind of get motivation as to, okay, here's the reason why this system is being built or this integration is happening. I think it's very important. I'm just speaking for myself, but other developers can kind of chime in and let me know, does that even make sense to them, that they know from the big picture all the way down to the nuts and bolts?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I think part of the value proposition will take care of the 30,000 foot view. And we'll just have to work on getting the transition down all the way to the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of standard. Like, I've been a consultant. Many places, what they have is a standardized document. So they start off with a high-level design document, and then they go down to technical specs, database design documents, API design documents, which are then, nuts and bolts. So, but they always start with a high level and then kind of deep dive. And during the high level, they do business requirement documents and other things too.
Yeah. And that's where Marky was working on that part of the contributor guide and the team assignments. So at least at the 30,000 foot view, putting some meat around the different pieces at that level, about what does it mean to be part of the outreach group, what does it mean to be part of the developer group, those type of things. And then we'll get into each working group will be producing its own documents as well. So when we get into design docs, we'll start creating, Google Docs or markdowns that we can reference as part of the PR and people can contribute to as part of the design doc, because that seems to work really well as part of that, the shared docs and being able to edit and comment on them. Like you said, one of the things that we'll need to do is really focus in on, when you get into those technical documents, is to focus in on a specific problem that we're going to try to solve. I think, any other comments on that?
Yeah, hi. I wanted to ask, since we have a couple of virtual conferences coming up, so is there any plan to like set up a virtual booth? We can like arrange for demos and even like get access to some mailing lists. And then...
Tracy, do you want to talk about what you have going on with the virtual conferences coming up?
Yeah, we have, Deploy Hub will be at both CDCon, will be at DevOps World, and will be at KubeCon. So that's September, October, and November. And Deploy Hub will have access to the folks who show up to our booth, and we're going to have Ortelius material at the booth. So we can submit, after the shows, we can create a like a mailing list around Ortelius for recruiting potential users and contributors. So I can help with that.
So a lot of the
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm also speaking at this DevOps.com virtual Kubernetes conference. So in all of these conferences that I'm doing, I am talking about Ortelius.
yeah, and I think what we'll need to keep an eye out for is call for submissions for the spring virtual conferences, because they'll start doing call for papers and call for speakers about 2 to 3 months ahead of time from the shows. So I think for the next, all the way through November, those have been basically already pretty much locked down. But when we're looking at the next trade show, for lack of a better word, season will start usually March time frame. So we'll have to keep an eye out. So if you guys see any virtual conferences and calls for papers, please let us know, and we can pull something together and get it submitted. Anything else? Besides me having typing problems? Okay, excellent. So keep a heads up for the email to go out around the working group schedules. So please get that once you get to the survey goes out. We'll try to get that wrapped up by next week so we can start having working group meetings next week. And then also one last question. I did remember what I was thinking about on the GitHub side. Does anybody have problems with Google Groups? Okay. So the reason why I was asking, you know how the when you see people trying to edit the document here and it shows like an anonymous mouse or all these weird characters that are showing up, I found out that that's because we sent out the initial link to the document as with anybody that has this link can edit the document. And when that happens, Google decides to make everybody anonymous. So if we restructure this document and you can give a Google group access to the document, and then if you're part of that group, when you log in, you're going to be able to see your name, and we'll be able to track who made comments and stuff like that on these documents, because that's really important for us to know who's making a comment and who's making updates. It just makes it easier to have offline chats.
It's a strange workaround, but it sounds reasonable.
It's the bizarrest thing. Unless you specifically log in to, that's why we got an anonymous walrus. I have no idea. But that's what I was reading about that. So we'll use and also allow us to have people join they'll just go and join the Google group, and then from there, all the permissions will get associated to all the documents and everything else, and all the anything that has to do with Google would be based on that group, and it just makes the security a lot easier. So if you're a member of the group, then you're going to have the right permissions to go edit things, and when that happens, we'll get rid of this anonymous unicorn. So, all right, that's all I wanted to wrap up with. Thank you, everybody, and we will keep an eye out for the survey, and we'll touch base in a couple weeks then.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Okay,
All right.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.